Since this is the first meeting of the month, or the first meeting of the year, 2019, I will call this meeting to order. Mr. Harris and Mr. Donovan, if you please stand and raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Tracy Donovan,
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
State of Minnesota,
State of Minnesota,
and faithfully discharge the duties of Planning Commission
and faithfully discharge the duties of Planning Commission
in the city of Breezy Point,
in the city of Breezy Point,
in the county of Crow Wing,
in the county of Crow Wing,
state of Minnesota,
State of Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Congratulations, both of you. That one of them could get along.
I will call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the November minutes.
I'll move that the minutes be approved. There was one spelling error on the second to the bottom paragraphs, second line down. When, should maybe went.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of that motion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion passed. City Council Liaison Report, Councilman Moroni.
So our meeting was just last night. It's one of those months that days falling back to back. Not a whole lot to report on. We're going to talk about the feasibility study that we did go ahead and approve for tonight. We'll talk about that. The council, though, did get a tour of the new clinic, along with some other people that were in attendance. They could also join, and phenomenal addition to the city here and the community surrounding us. We had a great tour. It's just going to be a great asset. So, other than that, we did re-sign our Bladek contract for the year. Any other questions about the agenda? Yes.
One, I guess I didn't realize it was only last night, but the donation to the Cemetery Foundation is important to wives of two of us. I hope they get a notification. Is that something that the city clerk does or the council does or what?
Of who gets a notification?
The Cemetery Commission.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, they'll get notified.
And I
It goes in the funds.
I have a question because every time it comes up, I never can remember what. Bladek, Brainerd Lakes Area.
Economic Development Corporation.
Corporation.
One more thing, I want to commend the city, and you being the representative of that, of I noticed today they moved that snow away from the corners so you can see around them. That's a smart thing to do, and I'm sure glad they did it.
We'll pass that along.
Any questions of Councilman Moroni? Any more questions? If not, I will open forum number 1. Would anyone care to speak? If not, I will close open forum number 1 and move to the next agenda item, which is review proposed second addition to White Birch Village. And we have the Brain Trust here tonight. David, would you like to kick it off?
Sure, absolutely. David Landecker, representing White Birch Incorporated. I live at 8581 Run Drive, Breezy Point, Minnesota. I want to thank Jerry and you to provide me the opportunity to address the Planning Commission tonight. Ahead of me leaving South for a month because I won't be here in February. And I just wanted to kind of introduce you to the project White Birch Village, second phase that we'll be talking about. I know you've gotten some plans, and those are just sort of some preliminary sketches, and I have them on my PowerPoint, and we can go through them, and then when we get done, if you have questions specifically about things, we can go back to slides, or Go back to the drawings that you have in front of you, which I do have separate slides on that will come up on the screen. So I've got about a 19-slide PowerPoint. It's a little bit of history how did we get here. We kind of did this when we did the rearrangement about a year and a half ago for the last three duplexes, 6 units. So with that, I would be happy to start that. I will just kind of, Jerry and I need to sit down and kind of hash out, technically what this is. I mean, a plat, a submission. We'll talk about in history tonight how this started out actually in 2008 with a kind of a PUD plat approval, and they've been doing, subsequently we've been, building in phases, so to speak, and the first phase was rearranged. And so we'll get into that, but that's something that doesn't need to be determined tonight. It's something that just, as we bring an application forward, the goal is for you to know that we would like to make an application and submit it to Jerry in March, the first part of March, so that we would have a public hearing the first part of April that would, and present to you the preliminary plat and kind of preliminary findings of, how engineering things might work on the site, such as stormwater, sewer, water, et cetera. The sewer will be public, which would be sewer provided by the city. And as Mr. Maroney indicated, they approved a feasibility study last night with Smith and Nolting to, facilitate a feasibility report to figure out how we're going to get the sewer to that site, and also covers other properties within that community or that neighborhood. But it's partially or mostly being undertaken to support this addition. So with that, I'm going to figure out how to cool down some of the lights here so it shows up a little bit better. Yeah. Thank you. So White Birch Townhomes, as they're known by sign, official city zoning map. So we're talking about the area on this map right here, which we've got the resort commercial, which is their golf course, and then this R4 property that sits along here, which has been, the boundary, this is sort of reconfigured. It doesn't look exactly like that, but generally the land that the building units are sitting on is R4, golf course is the resort commercial. Just to get you kind of a idea where things are at. This is again more of this is from the Croy County parcel map. And again, more of a zoom up. Antlers is here, County Road 11. This is the feasibility report that the city is looking at for sewer is coming down, Suffolk and, is it Papago?
Papago.
And, and then ultimately getting into our property. So it's, it's sort of capturing sewer in this area. These are the units that are currently built, and there's 18 units, so 9 duplexes. And this is the property that we're looking at adding in addition. And in addition to that, as part of this process, we're looking at adding some additional real estate to the overall planning development to include some additional properties that will increase green space. And it's properties that they use. They made one of the greens here, it's putting green, and there's some landscaped areas out in front that are actually managed and groomed and mowed by the association that they take care of versus the golf course property. So we're including that with them at this time, this piece. And then this piece over here, there's a little add-on, which is to help lay out the site better for specific reasons, which we'll talk about. Again, this is just sort of a enlargement of that area, or one with less lines on it from the county map. And partially I'm having these here so that you can, if there's something that catches your eye when we get done and you say, hey, let's go back to that picture so I can understand that better, we can do that. This is the original plat that was approved back in 2008. And it shows the phases at that time, and really there was, this phase, which is the phase that we're talking about, was built. And then there were some odd boundary lines here to accommodate land areas that would help balance the green space and impervious coverage calculations. In case this project never went forward, this project would be able to stand on its own. So that's why boundaries were kind of configured that way. It had this layout coming off of Papelville Circle with a cul-de-sac on each end. And you'll see that those cul-de-sacs in this new plan will fade away. And then it had the boundary ending here with the units, and the boundary as this. And again, you'll see that we're adding some additional property here. This fairway has been moved to here, and we're adding some additional lands. But in essence, we're looking at this as phase 2, and the end over here, phase 3, which is sort of how it's always been sort of laid out. So currently in the phase that's constructed, again, there's 18 units, 9 duplexes, of which I believe, if my math is correct, all of them are sold except there's an inventory of 4. How often are left to be sold?
There is really 3, because there's somebody selling the house. As soon as the house is sold, they're taking on the units.
Okay, so 3. So it's sort of, we're kind of like moving forward because this year, I believe, if I'm, again, generally speaking, the numbers, there was like a sale, 5 or 6 had sold. So if we take the math, we got 3 left. We need to be thinking about where the next ones would come for construction for next year. So this is the plat that got recorded from that original plat, again showing an 18. This is, again, just a blow up of that area. And then this was the rearrangement that we just did in 2017. So if you recall, we came in, we moved the N3 duplexes, we shuffled them a little bit because the building sizes had changed. We've got a little larger building footprint, and just the configuration. There was more room for us to get some more room between units, which was seeming to be more appealing to the owners of the buildings that were already there. So we're kind of we were looking forward to have the opportunity to readjust those last ones. So, and that's what we did. So that's this plat that you see up here was something you approved and it was recorded. And there's been sales that have occurred with that. Again, if you think about the blue skies and the green grass, this is what that project looks like in summertime. This is the end unit. So right now, when you look at this particular picture, the roadway that will be coming off for the first units in phase 2 will start here. And this is the end unit that's out there on the westerly edge. So this is the westerly side of the project. Just sort of as a point of clarity.
Do you want to entertain questions
Yeah.
now or
Sure.
at the
Well,
end?
yeah, anything is, go ahead.
Could you go back to the last
Yeah.
slide? It appears to me that at the end of that fence, there's a drainage ditch, if you will, across the road.
Here?
Yeah, right in there,
Yeah.
down along that
there.
road, right along there. It looks
Yeah.
like it's a lower elevation, might be used for drainage.
Yeah, I think even originally there was sort of the idea that there was going to be, the drainage ran that way and they ultimately were going to collect it in a stormwater pond kind of in that, where that bubble went out there on that side. And that's still in the plans.
Okay.
So we're not going to dam up or stop the drainage. If we build a road there will be culverts or vehicles to transport water.
Thank you.
And those things are all being looked at now. Again, this is a little bit premature. I'm not able to give you kind of the engineering specifics. I'll tell you about a few things, but for the most part, we need to get into weeds and deal with those issues between now and our submission in March. But it was just an opportunity, I thought, Jerry and I did, to just kind of introduce this to you so you can kind of be thinking about it. And as it comes to you in March, you'll kind of, if you develop some questions or we need to look at things, you can report them to Jerry between now and then. And if we can incorporate them in the plans, we would just love to do it so that when we bring it here, everything is in a nice, neat package.
Thank you.
David, are the these new set of units, is that gonna be one owners association, or are they each gonna have their own owners
No,
association?
it's one project, one
Okay.
owners association.
Because you acquired some more land, does that first group of owners have to approve that then? Because it's gonna increase property taxes a little bit. It's a shift of property
Yeah, well,
taxes
actually-
from the golf course to
yeah, I
the
mean,
units.
They actually did in the one where we did the configuration change. This homeowners association needs to sign off. They have to go to a meeting, have a special meeting just to approve and deal with that, and that gets recorded as part of our document. So they actually will sign on the plat as being part of the platting process, because we're including adding some additional real estate to their land, and then reconfiguring the boundaries within their current project. So, yeah, good question.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
So in essence, you're adding green space, like along the back side of the units.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you'll see that, I'll show you a little bit more when we get into that, I can go up here and point that out. So,
They're adding green space, but it's already there.
Can I ask
Well,
one question
except
just for
it's
some
leading
knowledge?
Yeah,
How you redesign lots, or the units 1 through 4 by having more space between? Is that the concept bringing into phase 2 is having that more space between, or, okay,
yeah.
just self-knowledge, thank
Yeah.
you.
So this is there's a few units that have garages side by side that they come in and they peel off and go both ways, and then there's the other set of units that have the garages which face the driveway. And I always call it wrong because to me the front is the golf course. I kind of look at it like a lake, but in most people's mind, the front is the garages and the back is the golf course. But what either way. So there's two different designs of units, and it was intentional to do it that way to kind of break up the monotony, if you would, of the same thing over and over again. So we're carrying that same theme into the next phase. And it gives, actually the floor plans are very similar, but a little bit different, so it gives kind of two different AV styles of interior buildings as well. This is just an aerial snapshot of what it all looks like now. And this is actually a color photo, but it was right at that goofy time of the year before Christmas when we kind of had a little bit of snow, but not much. So this is what's built out there. This is some of that additional property I talked about adding in. This is phase 2, up to that, probably about over the edge of the woods is. This is the woods, and this would be the phase 3 area that's situated in here. And we got Patco Circle, so the road comes off here, and we make our connection. So we're working mostly in this more open area. There's a scattering of jack pines and some smaller white pines and so forth, but nothing substantial that warrants sort of saving or protecting. Again, just an aerial photo blowing up kind of that area. So this is the design. So the design is the last 6 units that we built, the last 3 duplexes, became sort of the favorite floor plan. If you were to go back and study the pictures or go back and look at the units out on the site, the first group of units that were built were a little bit smaller floor plan. There were 2 bedrooms and just a smaller floor plan. And when we got into the end units, they became more desirable. They were all built on one level, and so we're kind of mirroring those. The units in the first phase were built with the minimum requirement of being 15 feet between each unit. And so in this plan, we're trying to get anywhere between, on the average, between 19 and 20 feet per unit, but there's some places where it's greater than that, like when I get into angles, but there's no place where the building would be closer than about 18 feet, 18 and a half feet. But we have units where they're further apart depending on where you're at, and then we do have a couple of the side-by-side garages. One would end up here where the phase line is. The road system, we come off of Papago, which gives us an in and out. The sewer for the city most likely will come down here anyways. We will connect with this driveway here, so if you recall, the original plan had a cul-de-sac kind of sitting in here. But it makes sense now that where we're at, this would come through, we would just come through and continue, and eventually come back out and enter out onto Suffolk down in this location. And when we build this out, if you've been kind of following the construction of the sites that are out there now. They've been building about 2 duplexes at a time, and I don't see that that will really change much. So once it's approved, they'll likely come in on this existing road here, build here, these first couple of units. When they get to here, then that'll kind of force their hand at building the connection, and they'll just kind of keep leapfrogging through based on demand and sales opportunities. So the landscaping and all of those things will generally be identical or nearly identical to those that are on the site next door. The stormwater, which is one of the things you had mentioned about in that photograph that you saw. So that building is sitting here, and the goal is that we'll have stormwater that will come in here. There's been a sort of a borrow pit that was built during the construction of the first phase that they took some dirt from here to go lift the site. We will incorporate that. The engineering people I spoke with last week are thinking that this is a depression, natural depression here, that there will be enough capacity between here and here that we will do some landscaping type ponds. And if you think about the ponds that White Birch has over by White Birch Estates, where they've got rock around them and fountains and things like that, I'm sort of envisioning that kind of landscaping being carried on through here, where we might have like a dry creek kind of a situation, and then actually some water that would be set in there in motion for landscaping. And Bob is hearing this for the first time too, because I haven't had a chance to really talk to him about it. So that being said, we actually think that we could put some stormwater conduit along the front of the units rather than having a series of small rain gardens that seem to be more complicated to build and manage, and then have a drain pipe that would actually run, collect, have a swale in here that's mowable, and then the water would actually disperse in the back so that all of our stormwater treatment would end up on the back side of the property. I've instructed the engineers that I'd like to see the 35-foot setback area between the road right-of-way and what would be our considerability setback, to kind of try to leave that in its natural state. There's some dirt that's been established in there either through construction of whenever that site had been disturbed originally. There's trees that are growing on it. It just provides a nice buffer. And if there's dirt that needs to be, spoiled dirt, leftover dirt, go kind of model it in there, kind of make that more of a natural landscaper. It create kind of a buffer between this project and here. Although when you drive by here again with that existing grade that's out there, it's hard to kind of see into there very far. When we get to this area, this is the woods, and there's a play of golf is out here. Again, the goal is to continue this road down. We would continue to build the units until we get down below. And because we spread them out, because I've now went and added 5 feet between each building, it multiplies itself out that I cross over the original line of the plat that was approved. And by crossing over, then I want to maintain the same density, I am taking in some additional lands that currently are part of Lot D on the golf course. So it's not in the play of golf. We don't have to change the operations of the golf course at all. It just provides that extra area to make those adjustments, to make more room in between units, which allows us more landscaping between units. It allows more sort of privacy between the walkways that that break off to serve each building. It's just it's kind of a win-win for us. We're thankful we own the golf course land and can incorporate that into the plan.
Which sites actually have buildings on them right now?
Up at the other end.
Nothing. This is the second phase. So I mean,
But I mean from phase 1 then?
all of them.
Oh, 1 through
18.
18, okay, they've got buildings and all that, okay.
Yep, every one of them is built out at this point.
When you add that additional property out into the golf courses, that could be out of bounds for the 4 golfers? Penalty?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, and Jerry and I kind of talked about the hazard of the golf balls swinging their way over there. I mean, the way that the golf course is kind of laid out right now and how they've made some of these adjustments for the first development that went in there. They've kind of steered away, not that my balls would end up over there,
But some
but
slicer.
somebody who actually does play golf is probably gonna be fairly safe. But I don't know, I mean, we've talked about it, I don't think there's been any glass replacement, has there been out there?
Nothing. Now, remember, we moved the fairway over and the green. So we left the old green there, and we looked at for the tenants to putt and so forth. So now we're just incorporating.
It takes a pretty wild shot to get them. It'll take a pretty wild shot to hit the houses.
I've been close.
We'll make provisions for that also.
This, to answer your question, and maybe this is a little bit clearer picture, is this would be the whole project. The association would ultimately control and operate everything you see on there, including the first phase. So the first phase is all built, this is all built, and we're moving into our new project, and then continuing into what would be, future phase 3. And again, if you did the math, if you looked at how long it took for this to happen, and again, we don't know what the economy will be, but this could be, a 5 or 6 year project if it rolled out at the same pace. That being said, if you sold 6 every year, it could go a lot faster too. So it's just sort of, what is the demand in the community, and it seems like we had a fairly successful year this year.
And it depends on the economy also, obviously. But we have a momentum going now. Nobody wanted to be the first one in. Once the first few got developed, then the momentum increased.
And phase 1 was done in 4 years.
Pardon?
Phase 1 was completed within 4 years, I want to say.
Yeah, I think 14 was when it started.
Yep.
And again, these drawings are in your packet, so as we develop our final plat, this kind of gives us our division lines as to what it ultimately might look like when it gets to the platting stage, if everything stays in the same way. So just from a comparison and calculations, and I can leave this PowerPoint with Jerry if there's really nothing secret to them. If you wanted to have copies of any documentation after tonight going forward, you would be more than welcome to see it. But these calculations are the calculations that were in the original plat on the sheet. And, it shows the land area. It shows that we're proposing 52 lots in the whole project, and that if you calculated out the density, the usable area with density at that time when this was developed, you could have had 76 units. We only asked for 80 or 52. It went into impervious calculations where when you take the buildings and the well house and the driveways, etc., we have an impervious calculation of 35%, which was approved at that time. And that's a question, Jerry, and I need to answer is, what did the ordinance say then versus what it says now? Because I believe now it says 30%, yet this shows 35% was approved at the time, and you'll see that we're at 35% when I come down below. The green space calculations, the ordinance requires that we retain 50% in green space when you take away the road surfaces and the lots that are platted for private purposes, etc. Back in the original concept, there was 60% is left in open space. In this development, we're at 59.2%. So the impervious coverage calculations essentially stay nearly the same. The green space calculations pretty much stay the same, and that's noted here. The density, because we're adding about 2 acres of land, and that cutout, the triangle that we're adding, as well as the piece down to the southwest, to relocate those units, we're adding about 2 acres, a little over 2 acres, about 90. I'm trying to see if I have it written in here. It's hard to read, but around 93,000 square feet, something like that. And what that does is it allows us to increase the density, where the density in this particular phase now would be all up to 86 units. you know, if we were doing something totally different. I mean, just as you go 1 unit for 10,000 square feet, the yield would be about 86 versus, we're not asking for any more, we're still going for the 52 that was looked at originally in the planning commission in 2008. So those are just some numbers, and again, those are based on information that I've submitted to you, and again, we'll have to talk about the impervious coverage calculations, and if we need to, as part of the approval process, if that's something we just ask for, if it's a variance we need to request, or if there's some other way we can mitigate for that. We talked about the sewer that the city is investigating. Again, this is just a rehash of, that's the way it's laid out. This is the way it was approved in 2008. So that's really the end of what I have to present tonight. But, you know, at this particular junction. So if you have questions, you know, comments, or want to help us do any additional planning or thinking about it, we certainly welcome the opportunity. And again, if tonight is, if you need to think about it some more, welcome comments to Jerry, and if you have feedback, get back to us. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of it, like I said, probably in February, and you try to wrap up for the submission in March to get it in. So that's the plan.
Would you expect the exteriors to be consistent with the existing exteriors?
I think, I mean, from the standpoint of color, color iterations, we may end up with a different product, but
Style-wise?
yeah, oh yeah, style. We're looking at similar styles, and I mean, right now we're essentially, if you were to go out there and look at the last 3 units that were built on the east side, we're essentially considering those would be the units following forward into this project. So, but I mean, it's about trying to come up with a way to keep within the market in the price point that we can sell. And so construction prices are just, with the steel and wood products, are just going up every month. It's changing. We're hearing that on our North Star project out here. The contractors, like, you wouldn't believe just the price of nails and things that have been stable for so long are just going wacky. And so, I mean, everything has an impact on this, and so we're always looking at ways to improve, you know, the floor plans, maybe, you know, the size of the structure, even the exterior product, but the looks and, you know, what you have out there, we don't want to diminish from what's been sold already to what will be built.
David, I might add that we hired Greg Kellenberger from Landmark Design to do the landscape design. He's the same gentleman that did it for the Antlers originally. So we wanted to keep the same landscape. I think you all know, I believe in landscaping. We've actually done things like, you know, we put a gazebo out there that the people can sit around and get to know each other. We have replaced the mailboxes so they're more attractive. How can you make a mailbox attractive? But we did some work around there. We've changed the lights, the street lights there twice already, because I didn't like the appearance of it. We wanted to get it just right. So we finally have something that I'm happy with. And we don't always look at the bottom line, unfortunately, but we want to have a product that we're going to be proud of for many, many years. An example of it is the landscaping at White Birch Estates. We did that professionally, and right now it's a beautiful development, especially when you drive by there at night and you see all these little lights out there. It's a beautiful little village, and it's done well.
There is no plan for a community center, if that's the correct word.
We have the two associations, the Timeshare Association, White Birch Estates, and White Birch Village, where they share the swimming pool,
Okay.
the fitness center, and so forth. They share the cost of maintaining.
And that is relatively close.
Very close.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go back to, let me just take you back to So that's, you know, that particular building we're talking about is right here. And this development is, you know, right here.
Literally within walking distance.
Yeah, and that's what the people do.
Mhm.
People that are here now, and some of them, they go up with golf carts and
Mhm.
walk. Not that in the weather today, you might jump in your car because it's warm in the garage, but.
Bob, do you emphasize senior living? I should know the answer to that question, but,
Do we emphasize senior living?
yeah, children are allowed in the development, correct?
We're not saying that you have to be 55 years old.
Okay,
What we're saying is designed for
senior living.
active adults.
There you go.
We don't even
Active.
call them seniors, they're active adults.
Appreciate that.
But Bob still
I
won't,
did it for me, not for you.
Bob still won't provide coffee on my doorstep every morning, so,
Well, there'll be an extra fee for that. but we're
Well-
not doing it.
It can be arranged for a fee.
That's
they
what
are
the
very
beverage,
nice, they are very nice.
that's what the beverage card is for.
Yeah, there you go.
They're very nice, they're an
Go back
asset.
to the very first, the sign.
Yeah.
There's an example.
The
We're
landscape.
trying to keep it classy. Just the colors, the landscaping, the stonework ties in with the buildings, the landscaping. And ironically, and this is very interesting, the active adults that we have there are now maintaining the flowers around the side because our sprinkler system doesn't cover that.
Don Erickson.
They're taking pride in their ownership.
So where's the sewer coming from?
We will.
The chances are that it'll come out Papico? That's what I thought, where's it comes from the,
Right now, the sewer, there's a lift station down here,
okay.
and the sewer, there's a manhole here that collects this, and it goes down and cuts across over to this. The city engineer is looking at running a line from across to here to a manhole, which would then come up here and serve this area. Possibly some similar configuration to here, a line coming up here to serve the third phase and other properties. What they found with Jerry and Patrick, the city administrator, have indicated to me, by improving these roads here, just like the improvement on this road, once it was blacktopped and sewer was in, it actually increased interest in people building out there, which supported both the infrastructure costs, increased taxes in the city, etc.
So those two roads are not paved?
Currently, they're just gravel.
Okay.
Yeah. And this one here, actually, with the exception of this house, there's no development on it.
Ah,
And this one just has a couple limited, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe, on this one, maybe a fifth one, not exactly sure. But more than 50% of it's undeveloped, probably about 70%.
So they have sewer.
They would have sewer and they would have blacktop.
They'll have to pay for the sewer. Okay.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, it would be an assessment project through the city. I mean, all of those things are yet to be kind of wrestled with and determined, and that's what the city had requested at the meeting last night, is for the engineer to do a feasibility report to come back to them and show them what options there would be to get sewer to this site. But they had those, you know, the direction of sewer on these two streets had kind of been something that was looked at originally when this was designed. They'd already kind of thought about, well, what's next? What happens when we get to those next phases? So there was some conceptual thoughts about what might be next, but we're going to dig into it now, or the city's going to dig into it now and figure out what really does and what doesn't work.
So if the lift station down there is big enough to handle that extra.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it is. I think, I mean, there's always things you can do to existing lift stations to increase their capacity, you know, pumps and pump sizes.
Right.
So I don't think anybody's concerned. I think the biggest concern is people want to try to, or people within the city would like to try to limit lift stations where possible, because they are maintenance and extra work, and you know, tremendous amount of cost. So I mean, the easy solution here, quite frankly, for me is put a lift station over here and just drain it down, pump it back. But that's a pretty huge expense in the long run because it only serves primarily this project. And you don't really, the city hasn't gained any significant benefit for the future. I think the city's looking out for what does the future hold best. Just summarizing kind of my thoughts. I mean, we had looked originally back in 2008 that under different administration, different circumstances, different economic times, that the sewer within the project would be private. We would put in our own private lift station, manage our own sewer, and pump it into the city at one location. But I think under good direction, I wasn't here at the time, they switched gears and now it's built the way it is. So I think it's an improvement going forward. I think the plan that they're looking at will be beneficial to a greater good of the city.
Will all those other lots get assessed for blacktop and sewer? The ones that have no property?
Any lots?
The empty lots? Not yours, the ones along the
Oh,
road?
anything that gets, yeah.
Okay,
And they, as I understand it, there's an existing house here, for instance, that has its own sewer. There's an agreement as to when they're required to hook up. They can hook up now, or they can hook up at the time their system might fail, or during some limited period of time. So nobody's like forcing them to do anything, but they are, you know, they would at some point have to hook up.
Does White Birch own any of that property up there, like Suffolk and Papago?
I don't believe so. We kind of looked. We own a couple down in here, I think,
Okay,
but I don't believe there's any left
okay.
on those streets. I mean, we have obviously the golf course ownership here.
To answer your question, no, there's no property we own down there. The one thing that we failed to mention, we have created a lot of jobs. We hire all local contractors, we shovel the snow, we plow or mow the grass, we take care of the swimming pool. So there's a lot of jobs that are created because of this.
Tracy?
Water, is there a central well system for it?
There's a, right now, there's, yep, good question. So when you drive into this project, you'll see there's a well house on the very easterly side of the project. And that's got a treatment center for softening and different things. But the pump, actually, the well for that, for where that well is, actually sits over here. The water goes into this and then comes back into these units.
Will that be the same one for the phase two?
This well is actually at its capacity to serve what's there. So
Okay.
we'll be putting in a new well to serve the new sites. We might have some tie where one well fails, the other one might be able to pick up and help support the other, but again, we're kind of looking at engineering that hasn't been determined yet at this point. But yeah, the goal would be to have a community well for the remaining portion of the property. Community well serves this, which is all privately maintained through the association.
Okay, thank you.
It does look like there's a couple lots owned by White Birch still in there, at least according to the county. Just two, but
Which street?
one is on Suffolk, the second lot in on the east, and then one on Papago, the third one from the very end. This is the county that
You
comes,
say that it shows that we own it?
according to today's Crow Wing County GIS site.
Yeah, it's probably on a contract for deed.
Yeah.
David, I'm trying to get my bearings. Basically, the golf course is in between this development and the North Star development, right?
No.
Quite a ways.
Between, you mean like where we're at?
Yes.
A little further west and then north, you'd be
Okay.
there.
Yeah, so this, you know, if I were, here's the North Star Ice Arena,
Uh-huh,
and they're in the North Star CRMC building.
yep,
Billy's, where are my Antlers,
okay.
and then this project sits here, and of course, we're sitting right
The red up above the yellow, that's the golf course,
Yeah,
correct?
that's the golf
Okay.
course.
And then that yellow above that is private?
This is all
Property.
near residential.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, this is a road that comes in off of 11.
Yeah.
Campgrounds sit here. Of course, the resort. So yeah, we're kind of midway between all of those
Yeah,
places.
and it isn't too far.
No.
And no roads, obviously, will ever go up there because of the golf course.
Correct. Yeah, the extension of those three circles
Right.
would be, and topographically, they wouldn't work because it goes into a huge depression.
That's right, yeah.
So it's it's designed the way it is because of the way God created that land.
Yeah, which makes this area aesthetically
Oh,
pleasing
absolutely.
also.
So with that, any other questions or things you want to look at specifically?
David and Bob, I think I'm speaking for everyone, we really appreciate you doing these presentations, giving us time to digest this information and think about it, rather than it kind of being piled on us in March.
Joe, we have an ulterior motive. We have a professional discount for anybody.
Ah.
I mean,
I would like to have seen a reel on that rod, though.
I love that
Actually, I'm
pointer.
going to turn this over to the owner here in a minute.
So you had to take it off on your line, didn't you?
Break the tip off.
I will say too, another thing is that's beneficial to the city. I know when we look at the feasibility study, but none of those lots are tax forfeited either on both
Interesting.
those streets. So that could cause some development going on.
There might be some plans for stuff down there.
It's a very attractive area.
It is very
Yeah.
pretty.
Especially in that you won't ever have traffic, a lot of traffic going up those roads.
No, just golf balls.
Golf balls. And golf
Golf
carts,
carts,
yeah.
Well, again, appreciate the opportunity, and again, if you have comments, certainly don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Bob, or like I said, just Jerry, can take and filter things to us if you see here, if they thought about this, if they thought about that. And we certainly will try to incorporate anything that would help improve. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you again, David and Bob. We appreciate it. We'll then move to other, and we do have at least one addition to the agenda, which is the election of officers. And we will do that
No.
under other. I'm trying to remember how to do this. Do I need to pass the chair to you?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think you can just
Call
call
for
for
nominations.
nominations, and
Okay.
anybody can nominate whoever they want, and you'd be nominating the chairman and vice chair.
Vice Chair.
Do you want to do one at a time?
It's up to you
What did
guys.
you say, Mike?
As I say, you should just do one at a time.
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Joel Ayers for chairperson again.
I
I'll
second
second.
that.
Well, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of that motion?
Any other nominations?
Or any other nominations? Thank you. Thank you.
I do have a
Yeah.
question. This is for a one-year term?
Yeah, the officer is.
The officers for 1 year. And you and I just got sworn in for
3 years.
3 years. Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other nominations? Are you sure?
I think it's unanimous.
Okay, it's a vote, right? All in favor of
The nominee.
myself remaining chair, please say aye.
Aye.
I guess it passed.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd also
You
like
didn't have
to,
to break the vote, that's the good thing.
yes.
I'd also like to nominate Larry Neer for vice chair.
Who?
Lawrence Neer.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Who is the
we,
current?
Peggy.
Oh, well, now, wait a minute.
I guess I don't mind that, because you never miss a meeting.
That's
so far so good. Yeah. Any other nominations for vice chair?
Nope.
If not, all in favor of?
Did we get a second on that?
Oh, did we? Yeah.
I
thought
seconded it,
Teresa.
but then I wanted to withdraw it because I didn't realize you were already the acting.
No, I'm not.
No.
Oh, Peggy is.
Peggy. No, my second.
Okay. All in favor of Larry becoming vice chair, say aye.
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 I'll abstain.
Congratulations. That takes care of that, correct? Okay. Any other, Jerry, that you have? Tracy, is there any report on the strategic planning or long-range planning?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing, okay.
I don't know where it's gone. I haven't heard from anybody.
Okay. Anything else that anybody else has?
No, I can, I'm gonna draw a blank on what was exactly said, but I know it's a goal of ours to get it done. Tom mentioned that it needs to keep moving
Right.
forward. Rebecca did say that, I think there is gonna be a meeting coming up. Actually, I wanna say it was the end of this month, maybe the end of next month.
When are they talking about having whatever, open houses or sessions? You don't know yet.
I would not know that.
I kind of thought it was, but I don't know.
I would suspect it's probably gonna be summertime because of the snowbirds.
That would be wise.
Yes.
I think that's, one of the goals was to get the public participation.
Good.
And I think if you tried to do some of that now,
Nobody's here.
4 people would be here.
yeah,
I wanna say it was the 21st, January 21st, that they're gonna call a meeting, but I will, let Rebecca know to make sure that notification gets out as soon as
And I
possible.
would imagine that the survey results are being tabulated properly at
Yes.
this point.
Yep, those are still being looked at.
Okay.
Gotten many? Just curious.
I do not know the final count on that.
I will say I couldn't believe that they said if they got a 6% response, that would be statistically okay. And I just boggled my mind that if you only had 6% responding.
Traditionally, in marketing, if you get a 2% return, if you get a 2% response, that is actually a good marketing campaign. So,
Okay,
It's appalling.
I don't remember that in my statistics classes.
I will open forum number 2. And I would imagine I can close open forum number 2. Anything else? Anyone?
I will be here in February, but not March.
February, not March. Okay.
I will be dittoing that.
Okay. The rest of us poor souls will be here.
Here in the snow, and somebody will have to shovel me out.
Okay, I'll call the meeting adjourned.